What's going on, Halloween fans? My name's Dave McRae. I know what you're thinking. What, a pre-recorded video, not a live stream, Dave? What's going on? It's just like the old days. I'm going to get comments down below. Oh my God, it's just like the old days. It's amazing. It's incredible. I know. Hey, listen, I do a lot of live shows here on the channel because you know what? It helps build community. It's more engaging. I get to talk to all of you in real time, but nonetheless, this is an old school pre-recorded video. So what am I talking about today? I am talking about a potential Loomis series. Now, look, I know I've talked about this before on my live shows, but I wanted to dedicate a specific video to it. So this is it. And despite being a Halloween fan, Halloween is my favorite horror movie of all time. It's my favorite horror franchise of all time. I am not one that wants a Loomis series. It doesn't mean I'm not going to be there front and center if they do one. I mean, I'm going to have my cheesies, my Doritos, and my popcorn and my soda, and I'm going to be sitting down and watching it, but I don't want one. And there's a very specific reason as to why. And the reason why I'm doing this video now is because, hey, it's September. We're kicking off spooky season already. And also because there was some Loomis, I don't know where it came from. Somebody sent me something, and then I saw something, and then I was tagged in something, and then a couple of guys want to do like a Loomis series, and they want to sell it to Hulu or something. I think it was on Billy Bob's Fart movie blog or something. I don't know what it is, but it just made me think, I don't know what's going on there, but it made me think, you know what? I got to do a video on this because there's a lot of Halloween fans that want a Loomis series. They want the years before Michael Myers. The years before Michael Myers. And I think it's going to hurt Michael Myers. I think it's going to hurt the mystique of Michael Myers if we have a Loomis series. Because if you want to have a Loomis series of everything that happened before Michael Myers, then that means you've got to make it interesting, right? If you're doing a series, you're doing like 8 episodes, an hour long each. I mean, you know, there's a lot of story, a lot of character development, a lot of nuance in there. And you're going to have to build an entire sort of story and all this stuff and all these crazy kids that he might want to. We don't need that. Before Michael Myers, I've always imagined and I always believed, and I think this was the intention, that Dr. Loomis's life was pretty mundane, was pretty pedestrian, was pretty normal. He was a child psychiatrist working at, Smith's Grove or wherever he was. He'd get up in the morning, he'd scratch his ass and his balls, he'd have a shower, he'd have some peanut butter and toast, he'd suck back the orange juice and the coffee. Whoa, that breath, boy. And then he'd kiss his wife goodbye and he'd head off to work and he'd deal with kids who had psychological and, mental health issues and all that kind of stuff, and that was great. But it wasn't until 1963 when Dr. Loomis, a man of science, suddenly came head-to-head with something you'd never seen before, never experienced before. It was off the charts, man. It was crazy. He spent 8 years trying to reach him, and then, come on, you can say it with me, another 7 trying to keep him locked up because he realized what was living behind that boy's eyes was purely and simply evil. But it wasn't until then that he experienced that, right? If we go back into Loomis's life and he suddenly has all these wild, crazy experiences with all these kids, it only waters down the experience he had with Michael Myers. It ruins the mystique of Michael Myers. That's what makes those moments with Dr. Loomis in the original Halloween so compelling. Do you know what I mean? It's because this is a man of science talking about evil and the devil's eyes. And although they're used as sort of metaphors and analogies, and I get all that, he's not being like literal, but still the fact that he's even questioning, I don't know what this kid is, it's crazy, he's not human, I don't know what's going on. That's why it works. That's why it works. Loomis had never seen anything like this before in his entire life. It's kind of like when they were going to do that prequel to Die Hard. Do you remember that? A few years ago, they were talking about doing a prequel to Die Hard and recasting Bruce Willis with a younger actor, and it's like 10 or 15 years before Die Hard. He's a younger cop on the force, and I'm like, whoa, wait. No, you can't do that. You can't do that. Look, before Die Hard, John McClane's life was pretty normal. He was a good cop. He was a smart aleck cop. He was a street smart cop. And it's not that he didn't face any adversity or didn't get himself into any kind of shenanigans, but he never faced anything like what he faced in Die Hard. Do you know what I mean? That's why it works. He was an ordinary guy in an extraordinary situation. There's nothing before Die Hard that is worthy of even looking at or talking about or making a movie about. Because if you're going to make a movie that is a prequel to Die Hard with John McClane, you're going to have some wild, crazy shit going on and terrorists and explosions and bombs and helicopters and guns and all that shit. And that didn't happen before Die Hard. It doesn't mean he didn't get himself into some kind of, shenanigans. But Die Hard, that's why it worked. You know, it wasn't Arnold Schwarzenegger. It wasn't Sylvester Stallone. It was an ordinary, regular guy in an extraordinary situation. That's why it worked. So doing a prequel to Die Hard makes no sense. I feel the same thing with Loomis. You know what I'm saying? Loomis had never experienced anything like that before. He had never met anything, you know, any weird, crazy, you know, kids that he couldn't crack or kids that he couldn't diagnose or kids that that's why there was an obsession with Michael Myers. He couldn't let it go. He had an obsession because he couldn't let it go. He couldn't figure Myers out. That's why he had that obsession. So if you're going to do a Loomis prequel, like the years before, what are you doing? I mean, are we just watching him get up and scratch his balls and go to work and sit in his desk for 5 hours and talk to kids? I mean, is that what the series is? No, because you're going to have to make some weird, creepy kids and supernatural kids. It's like, no, that didn't exist before Michael Myers. That's why he's obsessed with Michael. That's what turned him. That's what made him question science and his education. And like, I spent 8 years trying to keep him like I realized. That's what that's all about. You know what I mean? So I don't think there should be a Loomis series at all. I really don't. And then you might say, well, what about a Loomis series with Michael? Okay, but I think you still run the risk of demystifying Michael a bit more if we're seeing the Loomis-Michael years, right? Look, folks, I know this is not a popular thing in 2024, and maybe it's just because I'm, hitting middle age now in my mid-40s, but we don't need to know everything. Not every curtain has to be drawn back. Not everything's got to be peeled off. Sometimes it's nice to just imagine it, to get a little bit of something, a little bit of something, and just fill in the blanks on our own. We don't need to have every single thing ripped apart, every single thing opened up, every box opened. It demystifies the mystique. And the character of Michael Myers especially is built on the foundation of mystique and anonymity and ambiguity. And so I think if you go back and do the Loomis years with Myers, you run the risk of ruining that and watering the mystique of Myers down. And if you go back and do the Loomis years before Myers, you run the risk of watering Myers down, because in order to make the series interesting, you're going to have Loomis running into all sorts of crazy shit. Loomis isn't a superhero, folks. That trench coat is not a cape, okay? He's just a dude. He's a psychiatrist, for God's sakes. He's not a superhero. He's not a detective. He's not getting into all sorts of stuff and what's going on? No, that's not what was going on before Myers. That's not it. And, I understand that he's the Obi-Wan Kenobi and he's sort of the very wise wizard type of character in the Halloween franchise, but he's not an extraordinary person in an extraordinary situation. He's an ordinary man being thrust into an extraordinary situation, something he has never seen or experienced before. So, again, if they do a Loomis series, who knows? Maybe they could do it and impress me and surprise me. I'm like, hey, that's amazing. That totally works. But at the end of the day, I just feel, why, Paul? Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it, because I don't think there was any interesting kid before at least like to that degree, right? I mean, sure, he might have had a few little thing, whatever. But then you're making shit up. You're making Loomis into this, superhero type of character. And I don't think you need to do that at all. So it doesn't mean I'm not going to watch it. It doesn't mean my ears are not, open for listening to what the premise might be. But if you're asking me at face value, right off the top of my head, that's how I feel. I don't think it's necessary, because you need to preserve the integrity of the enigma and the mystique of the foundation of Myers. Again, if you're connecting it to the original film, right? I mean, if you want to start all over and reimagine and redo all that kind and just do a whole new, okay, knock yourself out, whatever, like what Rob Zombie did, you know what I'm saying? But often we hear these things about how things are connected to the original. Now we're going to go back, and that's sort of the rumors out there. And so I'm just like, no, don't fucking do that. It's just leave it alone. Leave it alone. Sometimes it's okay to just live in the unknown, because that was the point of it. That's the intention. That's why Myers works. If you know everything about Myers, he will no longer work. Anyways, folks, my name's Dave McRae. Comment below and let me know your thoughts about anything I had to say here today. If you want to follow me on social media, you can. All my links are in the description. Check them out until your heart's content. And when your heart is content, check them out again. That'll do it for me. In the meantime and in between time, I will talk to you soon. Alrighty. Cheers.